there's no way to really prepare for marriage. It's like preparing for parenthood. It's not really a thing. Like, you can't say, I'm ready to become a parent. Like, you don't know really what it entails. Marriage is similar. Like, every marriage is different. You can never truly be ready. Again, I've spoken to some young people, 19, 20 years old, and they're like, I'm ready. I'm like, the fact that you're saying you're ready is a sign that maybe you're not. Like, how do you know you're ready? As long as you're not going into marriage with this romanticized idea, and you know what marriage is really about, you know it takes responsibility. Knowing these things before you get married will solve a lot of problems.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to another episode of the Muslimi Experience. I'm your host, Brother Bona Muhammad, and this is a dope podcast where we get to meet really fun, interesting Muslims from all walks of life. And today is no exception. We have an amazing guest all the way from the UK. Imam Shabbir Hassan is with us. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. How are you?
Very good, very good. First time in Canada.
Oh, really? First time?
It is first time in North America.
Really?
So Canada's my first experience.
And we have some rain out here, so I'm sure you feel right at home.
I feel it. I feel just right at home, mashallah.
Miserable weather, mashallah, you can relate.
That's it.
Alhamdulillah. So, I mean, I know you as a poet. Oddly enough, yes. I know people might know you from your work as an imam, as a da'i, but you know the way I was first introduced to you was through your art and poetry.
Correct.
Is that still something you're into? Is it still something you're writing?
Not necessarily. So I actually intentionally moved away from the poetry spoken word brand. But what I'm trying to do now is, the way I explain it is like, if you guys are familiar with, of course, Shaykh Ammar, it's kind of like weaving poetry into your reminders.
Yes.
Like I enjoy doing that more than
beautiful.
Like a specific set on poetry.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, that's its own niche. I think that's very beautiful. I love obviously what Shaykh Ammar does, mashallah. But since then, since you kind of came out as a poet, you've obviously, expanded your profile, and I've been focusing a lot on marriage. And actually you are, I guess in North America, we would call it a marriage officer. I don't know what the term would be in the UK.
Officiant.
A marriage officiator. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and how many nikahs have you actually officiated yourself?
To date, alhamdulillah, more than 600.
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, more than 600.
That's like 5 a day, one after every salah. MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah, it has its seasons, of course.
Wow. And then when was your first time officiating? Do you remember?
The first one would have been back in 2016. Wow. So next year will be a decade.
Wow.
Yeah, inshallah.
So I'm sure you've seen the gambit, the range of all the different...
Yeah. Every culture you can imagine, every type of wedding.
Really?
I've been there in the UK, abroad. Destination weddings are a big thing now. I've been to Morocco, Turkey, UAE to perform nikahs. So
mashallah,
I've seen a fair bunch.
That's amazing. I mean, I want to tap into some of that knowledge you have, but I also want to talk about this course that you're teaching. You have a course actually called Loveology, which is designed as is it almost something to help people before they get married? Is that kind of the premise?
Yeah. So Loveology specifically is something that in the UK, alhamdulillah, across ISOCs, so Islamic societies, universities, mainly the single crowd, basically, young Muslims, more than 20 cities, I've delivered that seminar. So alhamdulillah, that's actually the main seminar we're delivering here in Canada currently. But yeah, it is a way to navigate love and marriage and just relationships and creating that self-awareness before you get married. So that's one of the courses. It's the more popular one. And it's something that I really am a strong kind of believer in, because it's stuff that we didn't have before we got married. There were some books here and there, some fiqh here and there, but just general awareness and knowledge, practical stuff, not just like this is halal, this is haram.
Right.
Practical stuff. It wasn't really there, so that's what I'm hoping to achieve through this, inshallah.
Well, I mean, forget books. Like even your parents sometimes don't prep you. Like people very rarely have that talk, before marriage. They might tell you you get the birds and the bees talk, but then beyond that, it's like, how do the birds and the bees live together? Like, how do you cohabitate in the same space? And so I think it's a really important topic you're focusing on. So tell me a little bit about some of the advices that you might offer. There's two people coming in, a guy and a girl who are thinking about maybe getting married.
Yeah.
What are some of the initial things that you kind of prep them on? Things that, you've heard over and over again that you immediately have to be like, all right, guys, this is a little bit of a reality check.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So I think firstly, we're going to come to love actually very shortly, because the title is Loveology. It's a funny title. The other day, one of my friends, he called me in the UK, close friend of mine, and he's just like, bro, I saw your face on this pink poster, and it says Loveology. What are you doing? And then I explained the concept to him, and then he was like, okay, that's good stuff. But
Alhamdulillah.
initially, it looks like some weird stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to actually talk about why love. Like we're going to come to that, inshallah. But like you mentioned the word preparing or preparation, and we always say this, all of us, right? Preparing for marriage. Actually, when you think about it, right, there's no way to really prepare for marriage. It's like you're a father, I'm a father. You know, preparing for parenthood. It's not really a thing. Like you can't say I'm ready now.
Right.
You know, like I'm ready to become a parent. Like you don't know really what it entails. Marriage is similar. Like every marriage is different. Every relationship dynamic is different. So I think the best way, instead of saying preparing for marriage, you could perhaps say, okay, putting yourself in the best position for marriage, because you can never truly be ready.
Right.
And I've spoken to some young people, 19, 20 years old, and they're like, I'm ready. I'm like, the fact that you're saying you're ready is a sign that maybe you're not. Like, how do you know you're ready? So for me, the whole thing is, okay, putting yourself in the best position to get married, and especially these late teens, early 20s, as I always say to young people, these are your golden years, right? These are the years where there's a saying which is like, in your teens and 20s, you learn, and in your 30s you earn, and in your 40s you return, meaning you give back now, right? So it's basically like your teens and 20s, it's your time to like experiment, make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, grow, and that's actually what shapes you as a man, as a woman, especially when it comes to marriage, just generally in life. But so I feel like instead of just focusing on, okay, preparing for marriage, it's like preparing yourself just generally, like, you know, as a man, as a woman. That's something that I think is a big thing, and I think self-awareness plays a huge role in that. You know, there's a lot of maybe qualities that you may have that aren't good qualities. There's going to be good qualities you have, but then when you take some of those qualities into marriage, it's like if you were aware of your temper, if you were aware of your stubbornness or whatever, you know, beforehand, because you communicate with your friends, your family, you have different relationships, right? Then you would know going into marriage that this is something I need to work on. Instead of waiting for your spouse, like, to point it out.
Like, by the way, you're a jerk.
Yeah. Right? And now you're going to get into what? Defensive mode.
Right.
You're going to argue back, and that's where the problems start. And so there's a really interesting stat that I always share within the seminars, and that is that so you must have heard of Dr. Gary Chapman. So the love languages guy, the five love languages. Yeah. So he also has another book, and within that they did some research, and they found that a lot of the times, basically, they say that there's different stages to love, in marriage. And one of the things he shares is that the first kind of stage of marriage, where you're in marriage now, you get to know each other, you settle in, like that first stage on average lasts for 2 years maximum. That's the absolute maximum.
Honeymoon phase.
The honeymoon phase, right? But again, when we say honeymoon, people think of the actual honeymoon. You go for a month or whatever, and then you come back. It's more than that, right? So the settling in phase, let's just say, right? So after 2 years, that's when what happens is, you know, the love that you felt at the beginning was strong, and, you know, the passion is there. It's all there, right? It's not going to be the same, right? Naturally, towards the end. So he says that that's the first stage. Then you move into the next stage, or the next phase of your marriage, of your relationship. But this is the thing, right? A lot of people don't know this. So with the whole love thing, they think, you know, the way that I feel at the beginning, that's the way I'm going to feel in 5 years, in 10 years, and it's just going to be like that.
Psych!
And it's like autopilot, basically. So there's, and again, this, like, you know, this younger generation coming up, you know, there's almost this thing of like, wanting things easy, you know, without me kind of overgeneralizing, but it's like, yeah, going to marriage, it's just gonna be easy. Like, you know, we love each other, it's all good. So anyway, coming back to this point of 2 years, right? There's also a separate study which shows that the majority of like problems and even divorces that occur within newlyweds is around the 2 year mark. So there must be a correlation there, right? Like, you know, you're coming to the end of that first phase of your marriage, and then also at the same time, this is where the cracks start to show, and you don't know how to deal with it. So a lot of people, they then kind of, you know, decide, okay, maybe this is not going to work, and khalas. So all of this, like, the reason why I share all of this is because it all comes down to knowing these things before you get married will solve a lot of problems. So that's why, you know, one of the first things we start with is just self-awareness, knowing what you're doing, best putting yourself in that position. And then that's when I get into basically the love side of things.
Right. But I think that's a really important note around being self-aware. I think a lot of us, especially young people, right? I know I started my marriage not being aware of a lot of my own quirks, my own, like, you know, the things that kind of made me tick. And I think once you get to that point of understanding your flaws, you can then address them, right? But you can't do that unless you first of all acknowledge, like, hey, this is a problem, or this is something I need to work on. Is that something you find common in young people, that maybe they themselves don't even know who they are?
Yeah, because I mean, we're all still discovering ourselves, and like I said, 20s is the time for you to discover that. Most people get married within their 20s, like on average, right? Whether it's mid 20s, late 20s. You're still learning so much about yourself. And like when I speak to 19, 20, 21-year-olds who are thinking of marriage, like literally it happened a few weeks ago. I was at an event and a young kid came up to me. I say kid like I'm so old now. But he was like, yeah, this is what potentially I'm thinking about. And I actually said to him that, in the next 3-4 years, when by the time you actually do potentially get married, all of this stuff you're talking about right now is probably completely different. Like what you're looking for in a woman, completely different. You as a person, completely different. Because right now you're still studying, you're early on in your studies in university in the UK, we say. But in a few years, you would have graduated, you would have had experiences, independence, so many things you would have learned about yourself. And honestly, when I look back to myself when I was 20 years old, versus when I eventually did get married a few years later, two completely different people.
Yeah, 100%.
And like, if you asked me when I was 20 what I was looking for in a spouse, like my head was screwed on by then. I had, a sense of responsibility, independence, more experience. I had done things in life, and traveled, and this opens up the horizon. So, just doing those few things. And I know we talk about self-awareness, and sometimes it's just become like a buzzword now. Self-awareness. Okay. But nobody actually talks about how do you create that self-awareness? And it's a different topic in and of itself. But I think number one is going to be like what we call muhasaba, right? It's your own personal exercise of taking yourself to account, reflection, moments of silence, like again, something, it's a separate topic, but it's like we live in such a connected and distracted world that you don't even get time to yourself. People go into the toilet nowadays. That used to be a time where that's time to yourself. Right?
Yeah.
There's actually studies that show that the best like creative sparks that you get are when you're in the shower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can attest to that. I'd be writing some bars in the shower, man. That's true. Yeah.
It's not just the bars of soap in there, bro.
Yeah, that's a good one. A good one.
So, right. So there's studies that show, because you're in there by yourself, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, right? You actually like are disconnected.
You're
But
relaxed.
nowadays you're in the toilet, and people are scrolling on TikTok for like 20 minutes, right? You don't even need to be in there. So we don't even get time to ourselves to even think and appreciate moments or encounters that we've had. Or, if I had an encounter with a waiter in a restaurant and I spoke to them in a certain way, like that moment's gone. By the time I'm in the car and gone to a different place, like I haven't even thought about what happened there. But maybe I could learn from that encounter, like how were my mannerisms towards this person? Because it's easy to judge your mannerisms when you're in a place like this. Or the cameras are rolling, so I'm going to be really nice to you, Brother Mona, right? But when it comes to those small encounters here and there, when I walked in here, those things, if you reflect on them, it tells you a lot about you. So just reflection, that's number one. And getting a mentor, a teacher, as we know in our deen, it's such an important thing, right? Having that mulazama of someone, they can point these things out to you, someone of experience. So these are just a few ways basically of just creating that self-awareness, I guess.
Interesting question, actually, just kind of along that train of thought. Like, of course, self-awareness, all these things are great, and we'll get to the part around even once you have the spouse, how do you navigate? But how do people even meet each other nowadays? Because I think it's such an interesting landscape with online, with all these different halal dating, marriage websites, whatever. I find, like, even talking to young people, it's very difficult to find that right person.
It is.
Sisters are just fed up. Sisters are like, these guys don't exist anymore, Where have you found the best places to actually meet the opposite gender and find a potential spouse?
This is perhaps the most common question that we get.
Yeah.
The Q&A section of the seminar, this is like the first question, right?
Where do I find my spouse?
Where can I find someone?
Yeah.
So look, there's three most common ways that you're going to find someone. The first is still honestly the old school method.
Aunties.
Because of course, like naturally, again, when I'm getting these couples married, in conversation, these things come up, right? So the most common way and the most effective way still is the whatever, the aunties, the family arranged marriage, whatever you want to call it, right? And it makes sense. I mean, this is how it's kind of always worked, right? The kind of village right? You know, same village.
Right.
Oh, I know this family.
Right.
Yeah, okay, let's get married, kind of thing. So, and nowadays you have the concept of like CVs or biodatas. Have you
Is
come
that a
across this
thing?
before?
No.
No?
What? People are handing
Not
out
in
resumes?
Canada? Yeah.
No, I didn't
Seriously,
know that.
the UK is very common.
Oh my
Especially
gosh.
amongst Desis. Very common.
Okay, actually, I've seen like almost like pictures and then
Picture,
like
a
it's
few
like
things about
but it's like
yourself.
very basic stats.
very
It's like
basic.
5'5", this weight. It's like buying a car though. At that point, it's like just the
It's
make
all-
and model.
But that's like your intro. It's like you look at that. Okay, like I want to find out more.
Right.
So then you set up a
Okay.
kind of like a meeting. So it's a big thing in some cultures. So that's actually still a really effective way, just through families
just like
and
a
so on.
person in the park just handing out cards or like or like
Well, nowadays you have WhatsApp groups.
right.
Like
Okay.
a WhatsApp group.
So
where
they're sending your profile to
it's
all the
getting
aunties.
circulated.
Oh my
So I've
gosh.
actually, by the way, I've had friends who have told me like after they got married, their CV is still circulating in some of these groups.
Somebody's
right?
scamming them.
Yeah. So it's still circulating, and people are like, "Yeah, I might be interested in this guy."
Oh
And he's
my
like, "Bro, I got married like 2 years
That's
ago."
hilarious.
Yeah. So that's number one. Number two is what I call the organic method, which is actually getting really close to number one in terms of the most common way of getting married. Like most young couples now in this, especially this generation post millennials, basically, is this organic way where university, college, workplace,
iSocks.
ISOCs,
Hey.
MSAs,
A lot of people be
okay?
volunteering for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Or right. I mean, hey,
Could be the right reasons, right?
Yeah, sure.
So this is the way. Like, you know, you come across someone that you like, and I always say, actually, for me personally, this could be a win-win situation. Like, it could actually be the best scenario for
I
a person
agree.
to meet.
Yeah.
Especially like for when I say win-win, I mean for the young person getting married and for the families. Because honestly, like people are struggling to find, like you mentioned, someone compatible, suitable. And imagine, like, let's say you're a parent and your child comes, whatever, your sibling comes to you and says, "Hey, there's this person, at my workplace or whatever, I'm interested in them," and they approach you to get involved in this process, and you can vet them and so on. Like, this is great because they organically, without doing anything like dodgy and haram or whatever, they've come to you and they found someone that they're interested in. And honestly, like, this is, like I said, it's the best way. It's a very effective way. It's a very natural, organic way, and it's become very common. Like, again, I know people who they volunteered somewhere. Again, they volunteered for the right reasons, going into
the
it,
right
for
reasons.
the right
Yeah,
reasons. Okay, and then they found someone else who's volunteering, and they took it to their families.
People knock on that. Like I'm even joking about it. But honestly, I think that is one of the best places to meet people. Just in my experience alone, volunteering at Islamic events, people be like, "Oh, the sisters and brothers are getting too close." But that's where else are you gonna meet people? Like that's actually a very good environment.
It's like-minded people, right?
People that are in the dawah, people that care about the same things you care about. That's a great place to meet people.
I've got a story, by the way. A few months ago, imagine, not even in person, on a Zoom class that I was teaching, right? And it was on marriage. It's fiqh of marriage, Zoom class that I'm teaching, right?
Yeah, full attendance.
It's over a course of 8 weeks or whatever.
Right.
So you've got like 100 students online, and we have a Telegram group as well. We use Telegram because your numbers don't show on there.
Right.
So it's just for resources and questions and things. So there were brother and sister, right? A guy and a girl who were on there. And subhanAllah, by the way, both of them were divorcees. Just so happened, right? Anyway, like naturally you have you can't even see each other. Their cameras aren't on. It's just me.
It's just,
right?
but it's like they
Just
really like the
name,
profile
name.
picture or the shape of the
just the,
the
name or
silhouette.
whatever, right?
Okay.
But because some of them are asking questions, or one of them's asking questions, the other one can see, this brother, mashallah, he's asking the right questions, right? Yeah, even on the group, he's quite active. Okay. So again, they without me even knowing, like they took it to their got in touch, took it to their families, and it just so happened it just worked out.
Allahu Akbar.
SubhanAllah. So for me, like when they came and told me, I was really happy. I wasn't like, how could you, like, this is what you're doing.
Behind my back.
Right? I was actually really happy. I was like, mashallah, that's a win-win.
Yeah.
Because the same students came to me a year ago saying, Ustad, if you find someone, please, but they managed to find that. So it's the like-minded thing, right? Very organic, workplace. By the way, I always give the example of Musa alayhi salam in Surah Al-Qasas.
Yes.
For me, that's the organic way.
Yeah, that
right?
is.
He didn't plan for that. I mean, he had a good intention helping those two women in Madian, and then one of them happened to went to the father, and it just worked out. Alhamdulillah, he got married. And the first example of the reference is like Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam with
Sallallahu
Khadija radhiallahu
Yeah,
anha.
same thing,
You
yeah.
know, yeah, it's a very similar thing. Through business, you appreciate some of his qualities. You get someone else involved, a middle person, get married.
I almost think like, shouldn't there be, and this is just maybe a question, but shouldn't there be some of that natural organic interaction even before? Because I notice that sometimes people like they romanticize maybe the profile or the picture or whatever, but then when you get to meet this person, you're like, oh, okay, it's not, you know what I mean? So do you think that even people who might meet in a very kind of bland way should still spend time and talk to each other in advance, and even maybe before bringing it to the families, but maybe still having a third party involved? Like, what do you think around that?
It's a tough one because, like I said, it's a very case by case thing. It depends on the individuals. You know, some people they're not as strong to do that. But at the same time, and I say this publicly during the seminars, I say I'm not a fan of the other side, which is what some people online they kind of promote, which is you see a sister. What's your father's number? What's your wali's number? Now, I tell you why. Even though on paper that might sound to a lot of people, mashallah, that's a great move. But the point being is like you've just seen someone you're interested in. Fine, no problem. And Islamically, no problem. Like you saw someone, you're attracted. Okay, but then to jump to marriage
Right.
immediately and ask for someone's like father's number, I just find it really weird. It's like based on what? Like
Yeah, she could be
you
a
just
serial
saw-
killer. What do we know? Meet a guy on the road, he's Jeffrey Dahmer. He looks it's like, hey, come on, brother.
Right? I mean, she could already be married. Like, do you see what I
Right.
mean? Like, you have no clue who this person is.
Yeah.
And what are you basing that on? And again, it's going to tie in with what we're going to talk about, the love thing, which is not actually love. It's just attraction. Because
Infatuation.
you've seen someone infatuated by their looks, and you want to marry them. This is immature. This is just absolute immaturity.
Very
right?
childish, yeah.
So that's why I'm not a fan of that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to approach them in the right way. What I'm saying is that, okay, let's say coming back to the organic method, you're in the workplace or you're in the MSA. Now, you're not just going to see them once, you're probably going to see them a few times. So for me, that's a good way of, okay, observing kind of thing, not like stalking them, putting on a cap and what's that Netflix?
Don't give these guys any ideas.
Right?
Some weird guys out there.
Yeah. So no, we're not promoting stalkerish behavior.
No, none of that.
Just natural observation. You're gonna
Yeah.
come
Just
across
get to
that
see them in
person,
their natural
right?
environment.
Yeah, that's it. And maybe that is enough to say, okay, this person is a person of good character, you know. And then again, like what I sometimes say to brothers as well is, even instead of you kind of like getting yourself involved, is you can always do it through like one of their friends, a mutual friend, right? Get them involved, and then then establish the interest initially. Again, you don't want to make it awkward and like ask for the number, they like reject you to your face. But if you go through them, hey, can you mention, like separately without me knowing, it's this person, establish some kind of interest and then perhaps take it forward. So I'm a fan of that, as opposed to the whole like get straight to it kind of thing and basing it purely on looks and attraction.
Yeah, because it's also very like it's immature in that sense. I agree, but it's also like very weak foundation to build anything on, right? Because it's like that even the looks. I mean, it's there today, but it's gonna fade eventually, right? If your whole relationship is based on this one aspect, it's not a good investment because it's not gonna be the same thing every single day.
Yeah.
But you now are in a situation where young people are coming to you. They're saying, okay, Ustad, I found the right person. Okay, this is a good sister, a good brother. I feel like, they're the right fit. What is the next step in that process, in your opinion, if these two people have, seemingly found the other half?
Yeah. So the one question I always ask is like, firstly, why are you getting married for? Why did you choose this person for? It's very important, right? I know it sounds like an interview or whatever. It sounds too formal, but it's important to know why you're doing what you're doing. Obviously, in Islam, we know intentions are key. Even for marriage, like for a lot of people, marriage is just the next natural progressive step in their life. So it's like, oh, I got to get married then.
Right.
They don't actually know what they're looking for before they even get married. So I always say, even before, because a lot of young people, they struggle when it comes to that talking stage, for example. They don't even know what to talk about.
Right.
So they'll be like, and this is why half a year, 1 year goes by and people are still talking. I'm like, what are you doing at that time?
Yeah.
Like, what questions are you asking? And I always joke and everyone laughs, but I'm like, people literally ask like, what's your favorite color? You're right. What's your favorite holiday destination? What's your favorite dish?
What football club do you support?
Yeah. It's like you can find out all of those things later.
Yeah.
That's not important. It's not the important stuff, which will establish your compatibility with this person. So you mentioned like the attraction, it's important, of course, in Islam, but it's a very, like you said, a weak foundation. This is not even what Muslims are saying. This is what like Western research, academic research shows, that so-called love is a very weak foundation for marriage. And if you were to, like, out of 100, if you were to say, okay, where does attraction fall into it? They say like 20% maybe. That's it.
Wow.
Like, it's there.
Sure.
But it's not the foundation. The foundation is actually compatibility. So compatibility is in different areas, like, future, goals, culture. Of course, deen for us is very important. Compatibility in deen and these types of things, right? That's the main thing. That's what's going to keep you going. Because, when there's times where whatever, the person doesn't look like what they once used to, or whatever, you wake up in the morning, you see them, it look a little bit
makeup's
different,
off,
right?
brother.
Right?
Yeah.
So like, what is it that's keeping you together? And there's actually a famous narration. Umar radiallahu anhu, when he was the Khalifa, this man came to him, and obviously Umar radiallahu anhu, when he was the Khalifa, he's not a young man anymore, right? And likewise, the man who came to him is not a young man. This man came to him and he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I wish to divorce my wife. And he said, Wayhak, what's wrong with you? Typical Umar fashion. What's wrong with you? Like, why would you want to divorce your wife for? At this age, you've got kids and so on. And he said, I don't love her anymore. I don't love her anymore. And Umar Adlan's thinking, like, bro, of course, like, if you're comparing yourself when you first got married in your 20s, and now let's say you're in your 50s, 60s,
Right.
the love, that side, it's perhaps not there as much, right? Then he said, what's wrong with you? And he said, what happened to just loyalty and what's the other word he used? Like loyalty and basically just consideration. The fact that you've been through life together, you've got kids together, just going through all of that. Like, love is not now just looks. People like there's something called mature love, which is like, now you're not just attracted to their looks. People can be attracted to a person's intelligence, the person's eloquence. You can be attracted to just the small things in a person, which actually is what keeps the marriage going. In fact, it's not just the looks. It is these things you're attracted to. So it's really important to establish why you're even getting married in the first place. People should know what they're looking for, why they want to get married. So of course, companionship is there. All of these things are there. There was a research done, by the way, in the US a few years ago, where they literally surveyed hundreds of married couples, not just Muslims, all across the board, and asked them, what is the main reason why you chose to get married? And there were a few. Like, if you look at the stats, it will show companionship. Some said convenience. Some said just want to have kids with this person, whatever. Okay. The number one reason, I think it's almost 90%. 90% of married couples said because we're in love. That's it, love.
Right.
And then you wonder why there's problems and divorce rates are so high and things, because if love was your, foundation,
Right.
it's a very weak foundation.
Yeah, and if it's the only metric you're using to rate a relationship, well, obviously it'll fall off eventually.
Yeah. And what does that even mean? Like, love, and I always say, like, love is a feeling.
Right.
It's an emotion, and feelings aren't permanent. They can come and go. And like this man came to Umar radiallahu anh, he doesn't feel love anymore. So what? That means marriage is over. Khalas, KO. Like, no, there's more to marriage than just love. It's there, attraction is there, but there's way more other things. So you've got family, you've got all of these things. So you want to consider these things basically before you get married. It's really important. This is the kind of stuff we talk about. It's just, I guess, in a nutshell, it's just managing expectations. It's honestly what it comes down to. Right. So managing your expectations before marriage. It's not what you see, in Hollywood. Hollywood gives you the happily ever after. Basically, when they get together, they don't show you part 2 or the sequel, where the actual relationship or what happens in the marriage, right? It's just the love story, and that's it. Bollywood, same. Social media, you see the highlights, literally Instagram highlights, right? So you see the husband and the wife holding hands and doing tawaf around the Kaaba. Wow, mashallah, that's, you comment goals. This is what I want, right?
So
I wish
cheesy.
I could have a marriage like this,
Right.
okay? But you don't see the 99 point whatever % of the marriage,
Right.
the day to day. So it's this romanticized idea of marriage, which I really don't like. And I don't think any person who's married and mature, I don't think they like this concept. And as long as you're not going into marriage with this romanticized idea, and you know what marriage is really about, it takes responsibility. We live in a world of everyone wants their rights. Everyone demands their rights. And you know what? You deserve rights. Everyone deserves their rights. But no one talks about responsibility.
So.
Yeah, young people don't talk about responsibility. So it's like marriage is a if you go into marriage focused on what do I give instead of what do I take, right? You know, as a man, this is what I got to do. When I get married, yes, there's going to be the fun parts, there's going to be the romance parts, inshallah. All of that is there, the intimacy, the children, the family building. It's great, alhamdulillah. But at the same time, there's effort that needs to be made. This is where the love languages come into it, because people ask the question, you know, you mentioned the 2 years. By the end of those 2 years, what happens next then? Is that it then? The love is gone? The honeymoon period is over? And, you know, we make jokes about like, oh, once the honeymoon period is over, khalas, enjoy, right? You know, you're locked up, whatever. But that's not necessarily the case. Like, what then has to happen is you need to now start making effort. So what once was really easy in marriage, because you're very forgiving and overlooking initially in the relationship, things are very easy, you know, you enjoy the small things, and the same things become irritating later on. You know, you're less forgiving. So now it just takes a little bit of effort. You now need to see, okay, my spouse, what kind of things by now, you know, by 2 years, you know what things annoy them and irritate them. You also know what things please them and make them happy. And it's, by the way, it's not just going to be the holidays and the dinner dates and whatever, the romantic gestures. That's good. But again, the day to day, sometimes it's just the small compliment that you gave them, you know, what Gary Chapman, he calls the words of affirmation, or the acts of service, the cup of tea from the UK, you know, cup of tea that you make for someone, right? Something small, but it has to be constant. It's just the effort that you're both putting in. That's what keeps the marriage going. Yeah.
No, it's a very important point. I think a lot of people, they do romanticize that, you know, that early phase. But I've also heard, and even from my own personal experience, that first 2 years also can be a little challenging because you have two brand new people kind of trying to gel their worlds together. You know, learning about what likes or dislikes this person has can sometimes also be frustrating. So is it something where in the first 2 years, although yes, it's a honeymoon phase and prepare for great, you know, fireworks and all that stuff, do you ever warn people like, hey, these first 2 years, you're also going to be tested to a certain extent?
It's definitely full of tests. Even my own marriage, I think it was very testing in the first couple of years. I think every marriage, it's the same. Yeah, of course. Like I said, there's the honeymoon phase, which that's usually nice. You know, the holiday, you go somewhere, fine. But then, yeah, absolutely, you're now sharing your entire life and existence with another person, and that's not something that you did before. Maybe you shared a bedroom with your sibling growing up, but like literally every part of your life is now around this person. You got to consider everything before you go out, there's considerations need to be made. So and then there's two different characters, two different personalities, which is not a bad thing, by the way. I think when people sometimes think of compatibility, they think you have to be exactly the same.
Right.
Doesn't make sense. Like even in English we say opposites attract. Like you can on paper have different personalities and so on, but it's about compatibility in the core areas. You know, it's like before you get married, some people, they have you know, you can have a list of deal breakers, right? But the deal breaker list, some people think that's like 10-15 things you add to the list. Bro, if you have 10-15 things on your deal breaker list, you're not going to find anyone. Literally, like, it's too much. Deal breakers are like 4 or 5 things max, like the absolute essentials for you. Like, it won't work without these things being met. The rest are what you call just preferences, just wants. Like, imagine someone said, I want to get married to someone who's funny. Right, but that's my deal breaker. Or, you know, you mentioned the football team, right? Imagine someone said, my deal breaker is, khalas, if you support Manchester United, it ain't happening.
A'udhu billah.
Right, a'udhu billah, right? So can you imagine, this is, no, okay, you can have your, it would be great for this person to be adventurous and, you know, go on holidays or like traveling, fine, but that's your wants. It would be great if that person could, and you know what, those things people can develop over time as well. You know, before you get married, maybe you're not adventurous, maybe after marriage you are.
Right.
But it's the core essential things that you want to focus on, so that there's no surprises. If you have these conversations before marriage on the core things, great. I've actually had situations where I've spoken to the couple after they got married, where, subhanAllah, like really important things, like one of them really wanted to have children, right? You know, it's a family person, wants to have children. And the other person actually was like, I'm not really interested in having children because of career and what. And they actually decided, you know, let's just give it a go. Let's see how things go. Maybe. And the other person who wanted to have kids thought maybe they'll change their mind. Allah, and subhanAllah, you know, 2 years in, 3 years in, the person doesn't want to have kids, and this person is like really wanting to have kids. This is a major compatibility issue. Like, this is a conversation. You don't just, you know, you don't just like say, yeah, let's see how it goes. Deen is very similar, actually. You don't just say, yeah, this person's like completely off right now. yeah, inshallah, I'll make some dua and hopefully they'll be okay.
They'll see me
later
pray.
on.
They'll join in eventually.
Yeah, maybe. No. I've seen major issues happen like this. Even things like if your deal breaker is you don't want to live in the same family home or whatever, you want to have your own space. That's your thing, right? Maybe the guy could say, no, that's not going to happen. Fine, but at least you know that, right? But don't go into it thinking, yeah, let's see, inshallah. That's actually a really common one where they've wanted their own space, and maybe initially they're happy to be with family, and then over time, they want to have their own space as a family. No problem, but have that conversation. Ask, and one thing I always say is don't also accept. Like nowadays we call it the chat GBT answers. The things they chuck in throw in like an inshallah or something, and you're like, okay, that sounds good. Yeah, inshallah, I plan to move out at some point. Inshallah, yeah, my career, I'll get this qualified. No, you want to be clear. Like you're marrying this person, have some kind of clear roadmap. Yeah. Within 2 years, inshallah, we'll live with family, and then I'm going to be hopefully moved up by then, and I'll earn a little bit more, and if you're working as well, we can help each other out. Then inshallah, yeah, we can perhaps get our own place, rent a place or whatever. There's some clear roadmap, and you have an understanding, but then a lot of people, they just say, Bismillah, let's see how it goes on core issues.
Right.
And then it kind of comes back to bite them. So, I forgot what the initial question was, but basically just
Me
knowing
too.
this. Yeah.
That's a very good answer though. But a follow-up question now, because people talk about red flags, green flags, right? You're talking about compatibility. What are some, and now your experience, 600 plus nikahs, so you've seen it all, right? What are some of the definite red flags? In both.
Yeah.
That you're just like, okay, if this guy has this or this girl has this, run. Like, are there red flags that are just glaring for you that are not worth building around?
So I think for me, one of the most important things you want to focus on, and of course there's hadiths to back this up as well, is a person's character. Islamic perspective, it's there. A person, the Prophet said, and when he's addressing especially the awliya, he's addressing the parents and the guardians, he's saying, like, if a man comes and proposes to your daughter and his deen and his khuluq, his religious background and his character is pleasing to you, then get them married off. If not, then the Prophet said that there will be major corruption in the land. That's what he said. Fasadun arid. Because why? Because if you're not getting them married to good people, then what's going to happen is they'll go off and do their own things or whatever. There's just going to be a lot of fasad on the earth, and people are not going to get married. So deen and khuluq is very important. Deen, of course, is there, we speak about, but khuluq is just as important. The good character. Again, the example of Khadija radhiallahu anha, what did she see in the Prophet ﷺ? It was his sense of amana, his sense of trustworthiness, his sense of honesty, which is very important in a man. Likewise, the same Musa alayhi salam in Surah Al-Qasas, she literally went to her father and said, what I see in him is qawiyun ameen. He is a strong man and he is ameen, he is trustworthy. So yes, you can have the physical side, you can have that side, the career, but then the character is the most important. So what I've seen, the red flags that I've seen are mainly to do with character, right? It's like, because ultimately, again, so that's the Islamic perspective, and then you have just the general, like what, counselors and psychologists and what they say, and they say the same thing. Like after marriage, what's going to keep your marriage going is character. Like if that person is genuinely a good person, then it's worth staying with that person. But if this person has everything else on their resume, but they're not a good person, they have major character flaws, then you're going to struggle living with this person. Why would you want to live with a person who does your head in, who literally is ill-mannered, who doesn't know how to speak to you, doesn't know how to be gentle and kind, isn't an honest person, who has a temper, who is stubborn, who never wants to apologize, never accepts that they're wrong. These are like major character flaws. But if you marry someone who's got good character, then like everything else falls into place. Even if like they're not perfect elsewhere. Even if like on paper there's a few other things, but that's one thing you don't you don't compromise, which is so yeah. Like coming back to your question, there's been lots of cases where I can literally see, and this is why, by the way, it's so important for young people to involve others in the process. We live in this very it's very individualistic. This kind of sense of independence that these young people have, which is mashallah is a good thing on one hand, but on the other hand it's actually quite detrimental when it comes to these things where it's like no, I know what I want. Like what do you know? Like I know what I'm looking for, so I'll do this myself, and then when I find someone, I'll bring them to you, right? And then if now the parents say no because they've seen some like red flags in this person. Now it's a massive world war happening in the household.
Daddy, you don't know him.
Right? Yeah,
He's a great guy.
but
I met him 3 times.
Right? I'm in love, and how could you? And they feel betrayed by their parents, and so many issues. And then some families break apart based on this. They go off and just khalas, right? They get their nikah done, and the family, like, you could have just avoided all of this if you just brought in family or whoever it was, a third party, a teacher, someone in to just vet this person. And I've seen it with my own, like, people that I know, family, friends, where I've been part of the conversations, and I can see, based on little experience that I have, that there's some red flags here. The answers that they're giving, or the character of this person, or even just the family, there's something not right here. But the other person sat there, mashallah, they're they're like
the exact opposite. They're
like,
hypnotized.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Right. SubhanAllah, by the way, there's a hadith, the Prophet he said, "Hubbuka shay yu'mi wa yusim." Like, your love for something can make you deaf and blind. It can make you lose your senses. And it's true, right? And it's naturally wired within us, when you see something you like, that you have an attraction towards, even if it's not a person, even if it's just like, you go shopping, like, there's major, like, there's the whole psychology behind, businesses and how they put things on the windows and things. It's like you see something and it's like, whether I can afford it or not, you know what, take the credit card out, I'm gonna buy it. It's like that. Imagine with a person. This is the strongest type of love, strongest type of affection and feeling and emotion, is when you're taken aback by a person that you're attracted to, right? Now, of course, like, I don't blame the person, but at the same time, I'm like, if you're doing that to yourself, then yeah, good luck. But if you involve this other person and you're willing to hear from them, then they can really guide you in this process. So I always advise, look, always have someone there of experience who's also, like, don't take your single friend with you. What do you think? What do they know?
Your 8-year-old brother. Like, give me your insight into this guy.
I think if the books of fiqh, maybe you're my wali or something. No. You have to, like, let someone come who's experienced, got a bit of wisdom in these things, and they can guide you. And as long as you're, like, sincere and you're willing to hear them out, not just like they're there as a side piece. Literally, you're willing to hear them out. I promise you, it will do you much more good. And of course, the person there with you needs to also be understanding, and not just kind of like be in your face the whole time when you're speaking to them. Like, okay, no, like, back off a little bit. Right, give them some space as well. There's ways to do this. Offer your advice where needed. But yeah, having someone involved, again, there was a case not long ago where this, the nikah was about to take place. A few weeks before the nikah, this slightly different scenario, but basically one of the questions I asked was, what's the mahar that's been agreed, right? It's part of, I need to know for the paperwork. So it kind of got awkward on the call. The bride and groom are there, and also the bride's brother is on the call. And they were like, mahar. And the bride, she was like, no, there's no mahar, there's no need for mahar. I was like, that's a bit strange. I never get that. Like, I have low mahar amounts, fine. By the way, for those
very
of you
righteous woman, by the way.
Huh? Mashallah. Right.
No mahar needed, brother.
I could tell. I mean, there's a few things that were off. Firstly, she's very young. So I was like, why would you not want a mahar for?
Okay.
The guy is not saying much. The brother's not even saying anything. So I was like, something's not right here. Because they're like, then I explained to them why there should be a mahar. Right? I mean, according to some of the ulama, like, this is a condition for the nikah, and explaining the thing. And they were like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll discuss. And then what I did after the call is separately I emailed them both, especially the bride. And I said to her, if you don't mind me asking, like, if you feel like I'm overstepping my mark here, please tell me. But look, as your imam, I feel like I should ask you why. And I explained to her the importance of the mahar and what it is. Because, some people have this understanding. Mahar is like, you're buying me out kind of thing. I'm trying to, like, break that. Maybe. Anyway, so she got back to me and she said, Jazakallah khair, thank you so much for your email. Actually, the reason was I felt awkward asking for anything. This is the thing. Like, I felt awkward asking, so that's why I said nothing. So, but my response to her was, but why are you asking anyway? Why are you being put in the position where you have to lead the conversation? Now, that's not your job technically. Your job is to, as the bride, is of course to have your say in the background. But then you're not supposed to go to the guy and be like, this is essentially, if you feel awkward, then involve your brother. That's the man's, like, that's what the wali is there for, right? Part of the process is for them to have these conversations. So when I said that to her, then she was like, okay, khair, I'll involve them. And alhamdulillah, in the end, they had like a decent mahar that they agreed on. The lesson from this is that you just don't do everything yourself. It's not on you. Like, you involve other people. They can have, their say. Of course, we don't like the extremes where families are controlling and they control every aspect of it and you don't have any say. But have your say in the background. Let other people do their thing as well. Get their advice, get their thing. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very, very difficult. So whether it's in the talking process, even if it's in the wedding planning process, always there's baraka in this.
Yes.
We know this, right? The istikhara, two things that the Prophet said. You will never regret or fail in the decision that you make if you do these two things, istikhara and istishara. The istikhara, of course, we all know. I mean, people only do istikhara once in their life.
Yeah. This is the go-to time for istikhara.
Like, what is this, man?
People actually think istikhara is the marriage dua.
They do. It's so ajib. It's so ajib. It's like, you've only done istikhara once. Like, surely you've made more.
No,
even
it worked.
you
I got married. Khalas, I don't have to do it again.
Bro, like, before you went to college or uni, you didn't do istikhara. Before you chose where you're going, before you moved, before you, before having kids. No, just marriage. Come on, man. So istikhara, of course, right? That's important. Making dua, seeking advice. Seeking guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But like the scholars, they say, this is one of the misconceptions of istikhara, is istikhara. Before istikhara is the other step, actually. People think istikhara is the first step. It's actually the step that you take when you have like an inclination towards something. Not just like it's 50-50. Istikhara is going to like magically solve everything, right? I'm going to wake up, I'm going to have the dream. By the way, there's a funny story, real story, of a brother who wanted to marry, wanted to get married, and the girl's name was Maryam. So he did istikhara. Right, without knowing, like, doing much in the process. And then that night, Isha prayer, the Imam is reciting Surah Maryam.
Allahu Akbar.
My guy walks out of the masjid with the biggest smile on his face.
Probably left the salah. Sheikh, Jazakallah khair.
And this guy's like, that's it. Khalas. It's happening, right? This is my side. I was like, miskeen, bro. Like, it was going to happen anyway. The Imam was reciting, probably he prepared that from last night. Right? So even this whole thing about signs and dreams, okay, fine. Khair. But you haven't even done anything yourself. Like, you haven't tied the camel. You haven't gone through the process yet. And you've done istikhara and you think it's the magic thing, right? So before istishara, like Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah, he says, you do, before istikhara, you do istishara. So you go and you speak to, again, a few people, you get their advice, people of knowledge, experience, wisdom, elders, and so on. You speak to a few of them, get them to vet, get their advice. There's baraka in this. And then you are now making what? An informed decision.
Right.
You're not just making a decision based on a feeling of yours. You're making an informed decision. Then you go and Surah Maryam and whatever. you can factor that in.
Right.
Like, that's not the primary basis.
Right.
Like, a dream is not apart from Anbiya, prophets. No Muslim, aside from Anbiya, can make a decision based on a dream.
Yes.
It's not a source of Sharia. Everybody knows this. We agree on this, right? So istikhara is similar. You can't make a life decision based on just one dream or based on what you perceive to be a sign or what you see to be or what you feel. A feeling is not. Who cares about what you feel? Deen,
your feelings
Sharia,
are not fiqh.
Exactly, right? It's not based on feelings. So, but if you were to make the informed decision based on other things and then you factor in the sign or the dream, khair, inshallah, no problem. But so there's that. So
at least you didn't recite Surah Baqarah. That would have
been what's going on here?
So now a question follow-up. One thing that I've noticed is a new trend of, and I don't want to single out the sisters. I don't want, people to feel bad or anything, but I've noticed there's a lot of women, sisters, who may also not have the same religiosity that they would like. Maybe they're, getting into their deen, but they still want to get married.
Okay.
Right? But then there are brothers who I've noticed, if they don't have a level of religiosity, marriage is not always a priority for them. A lot of times sisters will still want to be married and maybe find a spouse who's on the journey with them, learning, growing together. Whereas a man will be like, well, I'm not ready for marriage. Marriage requires an actual commitment and he's not even on his deen. So to him, he doesn't see that value. Is that a scenario you've come across, like in terms of the imbalance, especially older folks, 30s and plus, where it seems like the men are not ready to settle down? I think I find it to be that case. I don't know if that's something you've experienced.
I think it's true in the sense that naturally the guys are a little bit slower in this. Although, things have changed in the West in terms of even the age for marriage in general. So we're talking for Muslims here because, of course, when we talk about marriage in general, like outside of the Muslim world in the West, I mean, it's like the value is being lost day by day, and that's part of the secularism and the loss of religious identity and things. So marriage is not even valued in general, right?
Right.
Now, is that having a knock-on effect on Muslims? Yes, it is, right? Because it's just a piece of paper. I mean, that's how everyone else sees it, right? It's just a piece of paper. I mean, if I love someone, again, coming back to love, if I love someone, I can just be with them, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that exact ideology is but it's a part of it is coming to Muslims, where now they're thinking, I mean, marriage, yeah, but what do we put first? Career, studies, achievements in life first. That's what I'm seeing. So the shift is, and this is, by the way, amongst brothers and sisters, because of course the sisters now have more opportunities than ever.
Right.
They get to study, they get to career, work, they're mashallah doing well in the workplace and so on. So part of that comes down to the part of that, sorry, is leading to them delaying marriage, because like, this is not my priority now. So I'm starting to see, actually in the UK, definitely guys and girls delaying marriage because they think there's more important things to do. And one thing I always say, and you know where also this comes from, even we as Muslims, we don't help ourselves. There's this notion of like, do whatever you can before marriage, because after you get married, that's it, you're stuck basically. So all your traveling,
Go have fun,
all your studying,
yeah.
your fun, independence, enjoy. Because when you get married, khalas, you're going to be at home, it's your wife, I really don't like this. What we've done now is, and a lot of young Muslims have been influenced by this, now they think, okay, let me do everything I can before marriage, and then, okay, the final stage of my youth is, okay, now it's time to settle down. I don't like that, because firstly, we again, there's these concepts Islamically, we've lost this like tawakkul in Allah, right? We've lost the sense of what baraka is in marriage. Marriage can bring about so much baraka in your life.
100%.
Someone asked me, actually, when I traveled last year to Malaysia, we did an event on marriage, and then on the drive back, this brother asked me a question, and nobody's asked me this question before. He said he wasn't married himself, but he said, people say that marriage brings baraka into your life, into your life in general. How did marriage bring barakah into your life? And I was like, oh, that's a good question. Because
Gotcha.
we say it all the time.
Yeah.
Marriage brings barakah.
Yeah.
Okay, but let me see, like the tangible effects of that.
Practical example.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's a good question. And then, subhanAllah, something came to mind. Again, wallahu alam, right? But I said, before I actually got married, I traveled a little bit. I did some umrahs. I traveled to a few countries. And I said, subhanAllah, after I got married, and in fact, not just after I got married, after I had my daughter, so mashallah, my daughter now, she's 3.5 years old, okay?
Mashallah.
And she's been to more than 15 countries.
Allahu Akbar.
Alhamdulillah. Like, and the reason why I say this is not, to show, mashallah, we're traveling or whatever, is actually to show that for me is the tangible effect of barakah. Because before marriage, I was thinking, traveling, I can't afford things, it's just, it's so expensive. But subhanAllah, after getting married and having a child, which is what the world will tell you, no, that's it. Especially when you have kids, forget about traveling. It's over. But actually, I've traveled more than ever after marriage. So that's the answer I gave to the brother. I said, alhamdulillah, this is for me, this is the barakah. This is, I don't even know how we did it. But me and my wife, we every couple has their priority. Some people want to buy a massive big house. Some people want a nice car. For us, it's whenever we get a chance, we travel. And that's what we kind of like prioritize. So that's where the barakah is. So coming back to this, you lose the sense of tawakkul and barakah when you think, we need to delay marriage so that I can do as much. No, why not? Of course, there's a balance here. Don't just get married so early, but marriage at a good age, and then enjoy those things with your partner. Build a life and a home and a journey together with your partner.
What's the ideal age that you've seen, or like give us a number?
A number.
Yeah.
So the number that comes to mind is 25, because that's actually when the Prophet got married. Not because of that, because we're not going to say, you have to get married at 25. 25 is, even like in the kind of Western world we live in, I mean, you would have graduated by then. You would have had a few years of, some kind of income or business, whatever it is. You've got experience by then. So for me, I always think of 25, thinking of the Prophet, I'm thinking of just generally just practicalities, right? But look, again, it's one of those things where I've met 20-year-olds who are like mature and just like got their head screwed on and they're ready. Like I can see, I've met late 20s 30-year-olds who guys who they just play games all day and they don't have no sense of responsibility or independence. So of course it varies, but for me that's a good age, because like young marriage is great, and if you're in a position where you can get married young, amazing. But again, without overgeneralizing too much, I don't like publicly push for that. And the reason being is because I feel like generationally we've kind of shifted. Whereas, you think about our parents and grandparents, they got married at really young ages, right? But then this generation, like, am I going to push a 17-year-old, 18-year-old to get married right now in the world we live in? I usually say not necessarily. Because are they ready? Do they have what it takes? I don't think so, generally speaking. And people can disagree and say, astaghfirullah, so you're discouraging young marriage when there's so much fitna out there. But this is, for me, this is a problem. So you're saying to me that the fix to everything is you just get married and that's it. You turn a blind eye to everything. I mean, that's for me. Yeah, of course, marriage helps with fitna, but it doesn't remove fitna.
Yeah.
The fitna is still there in the world. If you have problems, right, getting married is not going to fix all of your problems. So this is also what I say is like, get married, inshallah, great, it'll be good. But at least build yourself before that, So yeah, marriage is not the solution to every single problem that exists out there. It definitely doesn't remove all fitna. For some people, it can amplify the
makes
fitna.
more fitna.
Yeah, more fitna, honestly. But it varies. So just you yourself should know. There's a few areas where you should know. Like we spoke about self-awareness, there's a few areas you should know and you should identify before marriage. So I usually give three areas. I say, like, of course, your emotional just maturity, right? Your financial maturity and your spiritual maturity. These are the three areas where I say, okay, if you have these, not like perfected or unlock, but like if you're comfortable in these areas, like generally you as a person emotionally mature, you know what you're doing, what you're doing in future, all of these things. Spiritual maturity, of course, very important. Like, doesn't mean that you're spiritually perfect. Like you're going for Hajj every year and all of these things, but like, you know what the deen is, you prioritize the deen, salah, all of these things, it's a priority for you, right? And then also, of course, you have financial maturity. So I don't say financial stability or financial whatever, because for different people, stability means, like, it could mean you have a house, you've bought a house already. For some people, it means you have 50K in your account. I don't know, right? But maturity means, okay, depending on your level of income, you know how to manage money, you know how to be sensible with it, you know how to provide for another person. Like, I know people who have not as much of an income, but they are taking care of a family with kids, versus someone who, mashallah, has a really high-paying job, but like, they don't know how to manage the finances. So maturity in those aspects, I think, are important.
Is there ever a time when it's too late to get married? I know a lot of people think, oh, I'm 40 plus, I'm 50 plus, my time is over. A lot of guys, girls, maybe divorcees, people that maybe have had a chance at marriage, didn't work out.
Yeah.
Like, is there ever an expiration date on people's attempts of finding love?
I wouldn't say expiration date, but I think for some people, yeah, maybe it's well, at least we could say it's a lot more challenging and a lot more difficult for them to get married. But I've seen it happen though. We've seen it happen. 40, 50 in your 40 is actually, I don't even think it's that
40
old.
40's not that old.
It's not that old.
No.
Like, honestly, people, it's quite common actually to find that. But yeah, I get what you mean. You've been through a divorce. Maybe you've got some kids. You're in your 50s, 60s. Maybe you're looking. Wallahu alam. But yeah, I don't think it's never too late. But do your chances get slimmer? Yeah, naturally.
Is that where people start making compromise? Like, if people, some people come to relationships with baggage, right? They might have dependent parents. They might have children from a previous relationship. There are certain things that may not be appealing to that person or the potential spouse. How do you navigate your own baggage, right? Like, if you do have self-awareness, and if that awareness is not great, does that mean your chances are just like, khalas, that's it, you're never going to get married?
As in, for someone who's like younger, first time getting married, or like
either, like somebody who might just feel like they're coming to the relationship with some type of baggage or some type of something that may seem like a red flag or problematic, either, like I said, past children, or maybe a messy divorce, or things that people might look at negatively.
So if we talk about the scenario, let's say someone's been married before, they've got kids or whatever. I think it's for them. Yes, like you mentioned the word compromise. So naturally, what's going to happen is there will have to be more room for compromise. It's not like you're getting married first time and you can have a long list of things. I think it's just natural. And again, I've spoken to people who have been in a situation and they get married a second time. Some people I've spoken to get married a third time. It's just natural. And for them, yeah, what they initially wanted, and they had to wait a lot longer, and maybe they had to make more compromises on the person that they wanted or the circumstances. But I guess for them, based on the situation that they were in, they were okay with that. They were just happy because subhanAllah, their why for marriage was completely different now. For some people, their why is you just need, now like a father figure for the kids. It's not even about them wanting marriage. It's actually more about the kids. For other people, their why is just needing a sense of just companionship. And you're like, I can't do this by myself, right? I need someone else with me. Whereas if you ask them 10, 15 years prior to that, they would have had a completely different reason for why they wanted to get married. So hence why they're making more compromises. Whereas, you have other people who are, let's say you're getting married first time and you have your own red flags based on your self-awareness and based on things. It's not impossible for you to get married either. But what I would say is definitely start the process, like we said at the beginning, of, mitigating, and start the process of working on these things and getting help way in advance. Like, it's not just like, now I want to get married, so now I'm going to start fixing or trying to fix these things can take a lot of time. So you don't want to just do it when you're thinking of marriage. Remember, marriage is great. It's a natural step, as we said, but that's not the reason why you start to fix yourself. You should do that anyway, right? As Muslims, we're always about improvement and growth. That's a natural step for us. Marriage, of course, may accelerate the process, but that's not the reason why you start to change, because then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You're changing for a person, and then again, the foundation is very weak. So is that a strong enough reason to keep that thing going? No, perhaps not. So yeah, the reason should be is because you want to. You're doing it for the sake of Allah. This is for your own betterment, for your own sake. And then marriage, yeah, of course, it's going to help the marriage. So never like make an investment purely just for the marriage itself. Make an investment for the sake of the investment, for yourself. There's a saying which goes that, and this is to do with happiness. There's a saying that goes that don't get married to make yourself happy. Get married to make yourself happier, right? So this is a big thing again. Young people, they think marriage is gonna it's the step, it's like the thing that's gonna make them so happy and their life's gonna be so complete once they get married. But if you make that the objective of your happiness, then what's gonna happen is you're gonna be really disappointed, because the person you marry is gonna let you down sometimes. They're gonna disappoint you. They're gonna anger you. They're gonna upset you. In those moments, if that was your if that was your definition of happiness, then that's gonna really have an impact on you, right? It's gonna be detrimental to you. But no, you're already content. You're happy. You've got yourself in a good position, and then marriage is only gonna, inshallah, improve that and take it to the next level. So yeah, don't go into it thinking or pin your hopes and happiness in one person. And this is again comes back to the whole love thing that we've made so many references to. That is part of that expectation that, okay, love means that this person is gonna change my life. This person is gonna make me so happy. That's not what love is. Love is completely different to that. Love is, that ultimately you have two people who are just trying their best. That's literally what it is. Like, the best marriage advice that I actually heard from someone once was that marriage is not about it's not about 50-50 like we say nowadays. 50-50. Let's split the thing, right? Split the bill. Okay, yeah, that's not what marriage is about. Marriage is about each of you trying to give it 100, not 50. Why would you go into something saying, I'm going to give it 50%?
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. You don't go into work, into business, into anything saying, yeah, I'll give it 50. You're an athlete, I'll give it 50%. Yeah, let's see. And you, my coach, you give it the other 50. It doesn't make any sense. You both go into it with 100, right? And what will happen in marriage, this is in every marriage, right? That on some days, you're going to reach 70. And the other person maybe feels the other 30%. On other days, it might be 50-50. On other days, you've given like the max you can give is 20%. But the other person now fills in the 80%. It's a team thing, right? And it's natural because one day you might be like just overburdened, work, stressed out. You can't give your marriage as much time, right? Or effort. On another day, you can, right? But you're balancing each other out. So again, like during a nikah ceremony, typically I would say to the couple who are getting married, I say, before today, you were two sets of individuals, but after today you are a team. And that's what marriage is a companionship. It's team. So a team never is like individualistic. It's never just like what benefits me. It's like what benefits us together. And this is of course an Islamic thing as well. So yeah, if you think of it as we're in this together, we're going to pull our weight, both of us. We're going to give it our all, and then naturally if your partner is they'll learn who you are. Naturally, you'll see in the marriage that they'll see the days you're struggling. Like my wife, I can see a day where she's stressed out. So now you have to fill in a little bit, right? On another day, she can see I'm just gone, right? So what is she going to do? She's going to pull her weight even more that day. That's what marriage is. Like if you're about 50-50, no, this is my limit. And this is the max I'm going to do, and you have to give me this, and you just take, then it's going to be very difficult.
Well, this has been very insightful. I'm sure a lot of people out there, mashallah, are benefiting. If people want to find out more about your services, your courses, how can they get in touch with you? How can they follow your great work?
Inshallah, I think it's just mainly Instagram is a place to be right now. So whether it's my personal Shabbir Hassan or Nikah Co. Yeah, alhamdulillah. I mean, we have like different things that we're offering, whether it's courses or otherwise. There's a lot of work to be done in this space, like the Muslim marriage space.
Yeah,
huge work to be done, like in terms of courses, certification, books, resources. It's improved over the last decade, but inshallah, I think we can hopefully do a lot more.
Inshallah. Are you booked up for the summer yet? All the nikahs, all the weekends are slotted out?
Summer wedding season is coming up.
It's getting hot.
It's going to be an interesting one, inshallah.
I can't wait to see the reels with you and the Rolls Royce pulling up to the amazing wedding. But Jazakallah khair for your time and for your expertise in this field. Please, inshallah, anyone who has questions about marriage, if they're looking for a marriage officer or someone to officiate their marriage, he does traveling nikahs. Where's the furthest place you've been?
Weddings.
Yeah, destination weddings. Where is the furthest place?
UAE, I think.
UAE, wow.
Yeah.
We need to get you the Hajj. Umrah.
We've done that.
You've done Umrah marriages. That's really nice.
Courtyard of Masjid Nabawi.
Oh, that's amazing.
But by the way, it's another story for another time. But yeah, it was interrupted by.
Oh, Haji, one of those guys. Okay, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But inshallah, you can find out more about Shabbir's great work and get more informed about what to expect before marriage. Jazakallah khair for joining us on this episode. Jazakallah khair for all of you staying tuned to the end. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward all of you. Stay tuned to Muslimi for more great content. Follow us on all platforms, inshallah. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.